Hey everybody, it's Karen Anderson here with Aortic Hope for our weekend review. Before we get started, do me a favor, please click that like button, click the bell, especially in the month of September because we still have so many things getting ready to happen that are live events and you don't want to miss any of them. So if you click the bell, you'll be notified when we go live and then you can kind of participate in all of these interactive events that we're having. But for today, it's our weekend review. So feel free to join us and give us your comments and hang out and have a good time. And who's with us?
We got
Somebody just joined us.
Molly.
Molly's with us.
Hello, boo.
This is boom.
How great is
Molly's with us
that?
live. This is great. We've got so much stuff to talk about, and I'm just getting ready to get started. It's going to be a lot of words for me to say and butcher, so I'll entertain you. So excited.
Are you going to say it colloquially?
Colloquially. See, I can say it now. That word was God.
Okay.
Colloquially. I don't even remember what it means now. It sounds so dumb.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just thought I'd pop in and say hi and keep you company for a little bit.
Thanks. I love it. You can get started with me because the beginning of the week of last week is when we announced the patient guide. So what an exciting week it was last week. So yeah, we gave you all the links, all the information. You can find all of this on the front page of our website under resources, under Hope Shops. Even within resources, we have a post about books that have been written by community members, and it's in there too. It's like everywhere. You really can't miss it. If someone says I can't find it, I say I challenge thee. I challenge you. So yeah, we launched the aortic dissection, the patient guide, now in the month of September. Actually, Aortic Hope was established in 2016. We became a nonprofit in 2018, and all along our goal was to meet the needs of the entire aortic community wherever they were during the recovery and management of aortic disease. Because as we know, we'll have a lot of people with us, and it's because they're struggling, and then next thing you know, they're gone, and I don't see their names for a while. And then lo and behold, they come back if something's changed and they need a little support. So, and we do all these different things through so many different ways. And if for those of you that aren't aware, Molly is our director of social media and in charge of our Survivor series now. So she's got that under the little chicken wing right there. So that's great. So she's helping also the organization as a whole really create that interactive experience with everybody in the community. But the aortic dissection, the patient guide, was actually led by our director of administrative services, Jenny Schaefer. She's also a multiple aortic dissection survivor going back from 2020. And as she says, and I'll quote, aortic dissection, the patient guide, is a labor of love that we all wish we had received after our aortic dissection. Written by patients, for patients, the depth and breadth of the book is comprehensive and details everything from basic education about what happened to you through recovery and life after dissection. After my dissection, I had no idea what happened, why, and how I was going to navigate recovery. Every fellow survivor echoes this problem. So when I found out I could take this project on, I was honored. Aortic Dissection, the patient guide, was originally written by our friends at Aortic Dissection Awareness UK and Ireland, and they graciously allowed Aortic Hope to bring it to the US. For more than 10 months, a team of doctors, clinicians, and patients in the US revised and translated the content of this guide to really become a US patient and caregiver resource. And we're proud to say that this guide has been endorsed by the Society of Thoracic Surgeons and the Society of Vascular Surgery. Society for Vascular Surgery. Aortic Hope is a nonprofit organization whose board members are not financially compensated. To bring this guide to life, we relied on funding from generous organizations like Run for Aortic Health, Terumo, and Edward Life Science to be able to provide this guide at no cost to doctors, clinicians, hospitals, and for them to be able to basically give it to their dissection patients. Through charitable acts like these, our goal is to eventually provide a guide in some form to every aortic dissection patient in the U.S. Patients and their caregivers may present, that's a weird word we have in there, may present, I guess, a download. They can, I don't know what that word was, so it just threw me off. I was on such a roll. I was going and going.
Patients and their caregivers may presently download a PDF of the guide from our website.
Just didn't look like the right word. I kept saying presently. You know, that's what happened. Presently, colloquially, patients and their caregivers may presently, not presently, that's what happened. Right, I stared at that presently for so long. May presently download a PDF of the guide from our website. And then from the entire board, presenting Aortic Dissection, the Patient Guide, US edition, to the community is a defining moment for all of us. We are confident in saying that if we had a copy of this guide to read and refer to after our aortic dissections, not only would recovery have been easier, but our outlook on our future would have been brighter sooner. Even now, for some of us, over 10 years since dissecting, reading this book has enlightened and educated us. So back to all seriousness, we really feel strongly that if you've had an aortic dissection, whether 10 years ago or more, or recently, this book, you'll get something out of this guide. Molly, you have any thoughts on that while I go over presently and presently?
I wholeheartedly agree. Had I had this guide, not only would it have helped me feel better to know that this happens enough to publish something about it, because I thought I was all alone when this happened, but just the information in it is it just flows really nicely. It was like reading my situation all over again, just in a generic form. Mm-hmm. I think it's just an incredible tool, and I am so excited about it. And I think everyone should get a copy, if not for themselves, to be able to share to somebody else. Mm-hmm. It's well done. Very well done.
Yeah, I kind of looked at this book as everything we do 365 days a year. We dissect the book, and we've been doing it for so long. It's just now it's all in one presentation. And even though it says aortic dissection, there's still information about aneurysms that's touched upon, valves are touched upon. And we do foresee there being the next book, probably focusing solely on aneurysms and valves. So that's nice to know that this is going to continue on in the future. But really, every article we share from STS or Mayo Clinic or Cleveland or wherever it may come from, we've been presenting this stuff for many, many years, and now it's just in that one book. So
a nice sweet spot, easy to read and easy to obtain. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we will have the Audible out soon. So again, you can download this, or you can request one per household if you're a patient or caregiver, friend, family member, what have you. We are asking that you would consider covering that shipping and handling of $10. And doctors can receive boxes of 25 in quantity for free. So there is no cost associated to the book itself. We wanted to make sure there was really little to no barrier created between patients or caregivers receiving this.
So essentially, the guide is free to have downloaded audio or hard copy. However, that's period. But also they can donate money to the cause, correct?
Correct. I mean, if you're looking to get one as a community member, we are asking that shipping and handling be covered for you to get the hard copy, because you do have many other avenues of obtaining the book that would allow us to not incur a cost at all, and that would be download or Audible when that releases. But again, talk to your physician, get them to order a big box, and you can always get a hard copy from your physician without having to consider that donation for shipping and handling.
So how would I present that, let's say, to my cardiologist who I might see next week? Just say, hey, by the way, there's a patient guide regarding dissection. I was stumped when I had mine. I had nowhere to go, but now we have a book. You can order up to 25 copies to hand out to your fellow doctors, surgeons, or patients.
You can order as many copies as you want. They just come in boxes of 25 each. And basically, if you pulled this up on the website, you could just show them this link right there, and they could pull it up. And they could pull Aortic Hope right up on their phone, on their website, and just click the link. It takes you right to an order form. It's very easy. Just need their name, their phone number, I believe, their email address, and how many they want. And it'll be shipped out and received by them within 2 weeks.
That's just great.
Simple, easy peasy. Yep. So that was our last week, first of the beginning of the week post. And we will go over also last week, we had our very first live event with Jack Crow. and with Carmen David, both out of Aortic Athletes. They are both aortic dissection survivors and Hope ambassadors with us. And they interviewed Dr. Timothy Churchill, who went into great detail about exercise post-dissection, kind of down the road, further through recovery. And they really broke it down into a lot of detail. So you can go into our videos on YouTube and check that live event out now that it's in there for you to see at any time. But it was, again, a lot of in-depth information, good questions that were presented and answered by Dr. Churchill. So we look forward to having them host some more events in the future. We actually just had one the other day. Carmen hosted with Dr. Prakash, again, focusing solely on research. So that's kind of what Aortic Athletes focuses on, is how one can get back into, you know, some athletic exercise or regimen post-dissection. So yeah, that was that. All right, I'm going to take another sip because we've been to get into some interesting information right now. So, Aortic Dissection Awareness Month is here. Some people focus on just the day, which is September 19th. Some groups focus it on 1 week, which is getting ready to start on, I guess that's what is that? That's Monday, I don't know, the 19th, 18th, 17th, something like that for the whole week leading up or including. And we just realized there's just way too much information to not present it and make it an entire month. And we're going to talk more about how other people are also proclaiming that this is Aortic Disease Awareness Month. But we have our third-year medical student, Adam Ahmed, fourth-year Duke. I'm going to butcher his last name. I think it's Gao. I'm going to have to ask him. I'm gonna have to ask him how to pronounce it because I don't think I've heard him say it, but it's Duke and Adam. And they have been really focusing on all of the medical content that we've been sharing. And really the best way to start off is let's talk about the aorta. What is an aorta? I don't even know how many people really knew what it was, right? So starting off with a review about the aorta, if you go to pages 13 through 15 of the patient guide, that's where this is located. And it's a great visual, lots of arrows and pointing to what all the different sections are on the aorta. And here it is. You've got your aortic arch. Ascending aorta starts. First, of course, you're going to have your aortic root by your valve. Then you are ascending because you're going up. You're coming through the aortic arch, and then you're still in the chest or the thoracic area, but now you're descending. And then you have your suprarenal abdominal aorta. And then you have your infrarenal aorta. And then, of course, the bifurcation. I think that's what that's called right here. I think that's the word. Into the LAX. So that's your aorta. Like big old candy cane, could look like, I think we've had somebody in the community dressed it up as Lady Aorta, and it looked like it was a graft, and it looked like it had little legs. Remember somebody did that way back when? Okay, so we know that the aorta is the largest artery in the body. It's a very integral component of our cardiovascular system. Its function is really to take blood that has been oxygenated by our lungs and deliver it throughout the body, helping to perfuse every major organ in the body, including our brains, abdominal organs, kidneys, and other tissues. The aorta is very resilient and flexible vessel with elastic smooth walls that allows it to widen and contract as blood travels through in different volumes. And it's often divided into three major sections, as we just saw. So you have your ascending, which begins at the level of the arch, the aortic arch, where it takes its candy cane-like turn and starts to curve downward. And then the descending aorta, where it starts to travel through your body, chest and abdomen to get to the lower half of the body. I love how Adam and Duke, how it's just like so easy to understand, right?
They really do put it into perfect layman's terms.
They do. And then they challenge you. They're like, now keep these divisions in your head because we're going to refer back to it. And then you'll find, like, on the next post, they'll say, does anybody remember what the first section of the aorta is? I love it. They're like little teachers. All right. But now here's the fun part, pronouncing the layers. Couldn't just keep it with outer, with just the word outer or middle or inner. No, we have to say the innermost layer is the intima. And the middle layer is the media. You want to take a stab and a crack at what the outer layer is called? Go ahead.
Adventitia.
See, you should have been the voice of the recording, because how many times, Joshua, did I say Adventitia? It was like chia pet.
Chia. Adventitia.
Adventitia is the outer layer. But you know what? Like if you wet a piece of paper towel, that's kind of what this is. I mean, I've had doctors say that when they're sewing it, it is like sewing wet tissue paper. Isn't that incredible? And that just stays together, right? It's amazing. I just think it's amazing, the human body. But one of the cool parts, as Adam says here, about the aorta is that you can divide it into 3 different layers. So tunica intima. Why do I want to say it with an Italian accent? Okay, this is the innermost layer where the blood passes through. It contains very special endothelial cells, which help it move nutrients and blood. Think intima for, no, yes, for innermost. It's kind of like intimate. All right. Tunica media. This is the middle or the smooth muscle layer, which has elastin and collagen protein and helps provide the strength and the flexibility to the aorta. So think media or middle. Tunica adventitia. This is the outermost layer, which helps anchor the aorta to any surrounding structure. I never even think I knew that. I think I just learned something. All right, so knowing these layers can be very helpful as we continue to discuss some of the disease elements that can actually affect the aorta, including dissections or aneurysms. And then let's talk real quick, briefly, about the aortic valve. So when you talk about the aorta, this is what a normal valve looks like, okay? And that's with it closed. And this is what it kind of looks like when it's open. All right, so the valve is responsible for opening and closing as the heart pumps and helps prevent blood from leaking back into the heart. That would be regurgitation. So you might hear your doctor describe the aorta as trileaflet, which refers to the 3 flaps that open and close as the heart beats. But be mindful that some people are actually born with an aorta that only has 2 leaflets, and that would be called bicuspid. And then some people only have 1 leaflet, which is unicuspid. I've even heard of people having 4 leaflets, and I don't remember what that's called. So there you go. Probably quad leaflet or quadcuspid. Yeah. Okay. So 2 common diseases that actually can impact and affect the aortic valve would be aortic stenosis, and that's when it becomes too tight and starts to like harden a little bit, and that kind of makes it difficult for blood to leave the heart. And then there's aortic regurgitation. That's when these leaflets become too loose, overworked, and they become leaky, and that kind of causes blood to leak backwards. And with every pump, it adds strain to the heart and can also create an aneurysm as well. All right, so that's today. Not too bad, didn't butcher too many words. And there's a lot of links here where you can get some more additional information. So that was Aorta 101. I think that was fabulous. Good stuff. Any thoughts or comments about the aorta?
No, that was very well said.
We got some people to say hi to here in the chat.
Oh, let's say hi to people before I go on.
Yeah, Bruce Waldrop's in the chat.
Hey, Bruce.
Christina Kohler.
Hi, Christina.
Bo says hello. And then I said, Bo is here, because usually that's what he says.
That's right.
When we were talking about the patient guide, Christina said, very informative. Wish I had this when I dissected. I got all my info from Google when I got home 2014. It was very gruesome. It said most die within 3 years, average lifespan 10 years.
I know. We've talked about that quite a few times on what does that mean and how did that information even come about on the website. And here's a really sad story. I met a community member, not on Facebook. My surgeon had called. I had met with her and her partner at the time. And she had just succumbed to this thought that she was going to be dead in 5 years. So her affect, her emotional, where she was emotionally, how depressed she was. I mean, the anxiety had just been overridden with depression because she's just like, why am I even meeting with you? I mean, it's pointless. I'm going to die anyway. And then when I said to her, but first of all, we're all got 100% chance of dying. That's one thing we know we're going to have happen to us. However, the only reason those stats happened is because way back when, like 20 years ago, they weren't monitoring those of us that didn't have Marfan's, vascular Ehlers-Danlos, or Loeys-Dietz, or Turner syndrome. We were not told to come back for a follow-up ever. So we were fixed and then basically told to just go home and everything would be fine. So we were not surviving these events because nobody knew to follow up with us. So then they realized, okay, well, maybe we should have these patients that don't have a known connective tissue disorder. We should have them come in. We should have them be followed. And then when we started getting follow-ups and they started seeing that we were having subsequent aneurysms and other issues happen, they realized, okay, not everybody has one of these major known issues. There's other issues going on here. And that's when they started finding all of these additional mutations. And so it was widely accepted that all we do now is just see everybody. Everybody gets a follow-up. And so those numbers, they don't exist anymore. They don't mean anything. This 5 to 10 year mortality. You're going to be dead in 5 or 10 years. And they don't take it off the internet, which is a tragic thing in itself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So glad that you brought that up, Christina, because it's such a fallacy. And so many people get impacted by reading that. It's terrible.
Yeah, that's very true. And then Bruce said, I have an appointment with a cardiothoracic surgeon, but I was posting links and I missed that. So I asked him if he was doing good going into his scan. I don't think he's responded yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be good to know. All right. We are going to, I keep hearing myself inhale. Do you guys hear that? Did you hear that? I
Molly,
just
can
did
you
it again.
perhaps turn your volume down? It's just a scotch. Maybe it's echoing
So
through
weird.
you.
So now I'm trying not to breathe. So weird. Every time I take a deep breath, I lowered my mic just a little bit.
It looks like it might have done something. Maybe. Let's see.
All right. I just breathed and it didn't. That's good. We're good. Whatever happened worked. All right. We're moving on to the next post. And that was about thoracic aortic aneurysms, which makes sense. We've just learned about the aorta. Let's take a look at the aneurysms at the top part, and that's in the chest area, whether it's ascending or descending. If it's in the chest, it's a thoracic aortic aneurysm, okay? And so again, they gave a brief overview in the prior post about the structure and function of the aorta. Can you name the 3 layers? Does Bruce or Bo or Christina want to take a crack at naming those 3 layers? We'll give them a minute to think about that since we're on delay.
Yeah.
Figured that out.
While we're doing that, hold on. So Christina's got some follow-up here. She says, I had my annual CT scan yesterday. I'll pick up the readout sometime this week. My cardiologist appointment ain't till next month. And so
Christina?
I said, is that unusual, the time between the test and the cardiologist? Then she says, I've set my own appointment. I know I need a CT scan every year, so I told my primary care doctor to order the scan. I've not seen a cardiologist for years since no one close has experience with dissection. Now I found one that moved into East Texas. I read the reports myself to see if the diameter changed.
That's what I would have done. I would have grabbed the reports and read them and scoured through and Wikipedia words and dictionary words until I had to meet. I'd say, I think the doctor could have called you and you could have had a little telemed visit there. I mean, I know they're going to want to do an EKG, and listen, but they could have called you. They're sitting on those results for a month. But I suppose if it was an emergency, they would have already called. So that's a good thing.
And then she goes on to say that she keeps her CDs in her purse so she can bring them to her doctor's office.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, right?
That makes sense.
I said, you're a poster child for self-advocacy.
Yeah.
100%.
People in our state, though, now different health systems are all logged into Epic. So Hopkins films can be read by University of Maryland, can be read by LifeBridge. So they're all connecting now. So I don't even need to bring any more scans. They can just log right in and see everything. That's kind of helpful. That's the way it's going to turn in the country. Good. Hopefully everywhere. All right. Did we get any answers to the layers of the aorta?
No, nobody's chiming in.
Okay, Molly, what are the 3 layers of the aorta?
The intima, the media, and the adventitia.
You're so smart. You're so smart.
Is it up on your screen? Be honest.
No.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to talk about thoracic aortic aneurysms, and this is what one would look like in the ascending area. So that, can you imagine 7 centimeters, the diameter of a Coke can sitting in there? I mean, I know people have had that. That's crazy. This is what it looks like if it's of the descending aorta, and this would be just in the thoracic aorta, like just in the chest. You've moved past ascending and descending. You aren't in the thoracic area. All right, so aneurysm, bulging, balloon, blown out, not completely, just boom, big. It's within the wall of the blood vessel, and it causes it to dilate and to stretch to a size that's larger than what would be considered normal. And everybody, I think, has a different normal depending on your gender, your age, your activity levels, your weight, your height. All different factors go into that. And the major concern is when an aneurysm occurs is that when the vessel loses a lot of its natural strength and ability to accommodate different blood volumes, it could rupture due to instability. And one misconception that's out there is that a lot of people have, and Adam says, including me, until I got it drilled in my head during cardiovascular unit in school, is that aneurysms can only occur in arteries, and that is not true. While they are much more likely to occur in an artery because arteries have higher pressures, any blood vessel can have an aneurysm during stress, including veins. And I do know people in the community who have Marfan that complain about that specifically, as well as Turner syndrome. There's a lot of women that have issues with aneurysms just kind of in any vessel. Aneurysms of the brain and the heart vessels carry a major risk and require careful screening and monitoring and care by doctors. So let's talk about thoracic. So a thoracic aortic aneurysm basically refers to an aneurysm in the thoracic component of the aorta, including the ascending aorta, arch or upper part of the descending aorta up to the diaphragm muscle. Be sure to refer to yesterday's post when we talked about the different regions of the aorta. So here we go. You've got your aortic valve, your ascending aorta. These are the three vessels that branch off into the brain through the neck and the head. And then you've got your descending thoracic aorta. After the diaphragm, you're on your way to your abdominal. So the one was I said I wasn't going to say it, brachiocephalic, brachiocephalic trunk. 2 was the left common carotid artery, and 3 was the left subclavian artery. God, I feel like I'm on Grey's Anatomy. I just do love saying those words like as if I know what they are. All right. The easiest way to understand the causes of a thoracic aortic aneurysm is to remember that aneurysms are weak parts within the aortic wall. So this means that they develop when our aorta is subjected to an increased amount of strain or pressure for an extended period of time. So people that get concerned about blood pressure, when you've just carried in some light groceries from the car to the house, back out to the car, it's hot and back in, don't sit down and take your blood pressure because it's going to be higher. This is considered normal. It's your heart working. It's working. It's doing its job. That is not considered strain or pressure over extended periods of time. If you are doing that and living at that level for hours upon hours, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, that's going to be some stress and pressure, right? These little blips of peaks, that's what you want to have happen with a heart because it's working. Even for those of us that are on heavy blood pressure medications to kind of keep the heart rate down, it's still going to get a little elevated. It won't get nearly as elevated without the meds. That's going to go a little bit higher. And there's reasons why everybody's on the meds they're on, but having it go up is normal. So if you really want to take your blood pressure, wait 15 minutes after you sit and you relax and you cool down. And then you'll get a better sense of what your blood pressure is. But the most common cause of a TAA is you say it.
Atherosclerosis.
I love it. That's what I would have said. I did know that. Atherosclerosis, which refers to the accumulation of fat and calcium that's within the innermost layer or the tunica intima layer. So that's going to be your deposits from probably not eating great food over extended periods of time and stuff like that. There's a lot of different reasons why you have these kinds of calcium deposits or fat deposits. And this can cause damage to those beautiful endothelial cells that stop the smooth transfer of nutrients and oxygen in our blood. Other risk factors for a TAA include high blood pressure, increased strain of blood flow as it travels through the walls, smoking, which directly damages the endothelial cells, and genetic conditions such as Marfan syndrome, which causes abnormal development of connective and elastic tissue. Symptoms. Most of the people out there that have a TAA were completely non-symptomatic until they had a scan that said they have an aneurysm, and now they're very symptomatic. I'm not saying that you're not symptomatic, but I'm not saying that you are symptomatic directly because of the aneurysm. because aneurysms that grow to a certain point, developing on who you are in your body frame, could cause issues, possibly with swallowing or just other issues, if especially if it's in that ascending area or in the arch area. Because if you have a 7 centimeter huge aneurysm, it most certainly can give you some kind of sensation or uncomfortability. But people that go get a CT scan because they're trying to figure out if they have pneumonia, and then subsequently, in addition to whatever they find out, oh, you have a dilated aorta, and now they're concerned that they feel chest pain. That's, you have to really talk to your physicians about that. The likelihood of it being all of a sudden, now that you know you have it, and now all of a sudden you have this pain, it's probably not high. But I'm not going to ever just say discount it completely. You always want to talk to your physician about that. But some symptoms when they occur would be shortness of breath. They could be pain in your chest or your back, sometimes difficulty swallowing. Uh, um, Sometimes people feel a heavy beating in their chest, which is they think is pulsating, especially people that have larger aneurysms in their abdominal area, which we're going to talk about later. They can actually see their bellies pulsate. So that again, all has to do with your body size and just so many different factors. Again, don't discount anything you're feeling. Obviously, share with your physician anything that you're feeling. Keep a journal. But traditionally, they are asymptomatic, which is why this is called a silent killer, because you would not know that you have an aneurysm. If it ruptures, that is a massive medical emergency. You would more than likely present with a sudden onset of pain in the upper back that could travel to the back and downwards, a sudden drop in blood pressure, probably dizzy. You probably could lose consciousness. That would be with a rupture. That is different than a dissection. Very different. Okay. In order to diagnose that you even have a TAA, your doctor is going to order a lot of different imaging studies to kind of take a look at the aorta. And so that could be an ultrasound, could be a CT, could be an MRI, and angiography to kind of determine the size and the location. And Duke is going to talk about that in the next couple days, actually, and talk about all the imaging studies. So here, that's a big aneurysm. That's not supposed to be there. That's huge. That's big. Um, yeah, that's big. And the treatments kind of depend on how big or how small. And that, again, there is some kind of consistency, Molly. Wouldn't you say that on average, we hear that most of the TAAs are dealt with when they hit about 5.5 in the ascending, 5 or 5.5 centimeters.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you're going to make it to 5.5 centimeters, right? So they have a standard because these open surgeries are so taxing on the body and so risky. But with a planned surgery, the outcomes are always more favorable than in the emergency situations. Having something planned is always best. But depending on the size of the aneurysm, they're more than likely going to go for medication as your first line of defense. Obviously routine imaging and follow-up and stuff like that. But larger aneurysms, you're probably facing surgery. Could be endovascular, depending on where it's exactly located. If it's in the ascending or arch, it's probably going to be an open surgery because you really don't want to have a rupture occur. And some lifestyle adjustments might have to happen to decrease the level of a TAA running into an emergency. And that could be take your blood pressure more often. You might need to have a lipid panel monitored, maintaining a healthy, active lifestyle, quit smoking. If you are at higher risk for developing a thoracic aortic aneurysm or you have a family history, you really want to talk about all of your questions and concerns with your physician because you're probably going to need to be screened and monitored. So that is all the information, as much as we could hand you about thoracic aortic aneurysms, and as easy to understand information as possible. Anybody got any thoughts about that? It's a big mouthful. It's a lot to read. Yeah, thoracic aortic aneurysms, ascending would tend to have the higher rate of concern versus, a smaller one in the abdominal area. As far as if rupture occurs, the one that would be considered the higher degree of emergency. Now, I believe that the genetic, and correct me if you know the answer to this. I think the genetic factors, most of these studies really have to do with the thoracic aortic aneurysm. I don't know the genetic component involved in abdominal. I just know that statistically, it's more heavily weighted towards men, especially smokers, overweight, over 60, tend to develop these abdominal aortic aneurysms, just like women only get Turner syndrome because it's chromosomal issue. Abdominal aneurysms tend to seem like they happen more to men, but that doesn't mean anything. And just because you have something in your abdomen doesn't mean you're not going to get something in your thoracic, and vice versa. So it's not like the aorta says, "Hey, Charlie, I'm in the thoracic. Don't send any issues up here to me." It's a vessel. It's one. It's connected. You know. But also, it doesn't mean that you're going to. It just means everything needs to be looked at. So, all right. Any comments before I start reading some more about abdominal aneurysms?
So we were talking about EKGs earlier. And Christina says, I never get EKG. Maybe because my doctors are so new with dissection. My newest primary care doc needs the booklet. She's so clueless. She had high ratings on the internet. That's why she picked her.
Well, like I look at primary care doctors as the spine of a book, and I look at specialists as the pages, and the spine holds them together. And so the spine can order any medications that any of your doctors order. They can do refills for you, and the spine can help you with your yearly tests and getting things ordered or refer you to a specialist. The spine would not be the one that I would have read necessarily my scan and be in charge of my care, but they would communicate with all the doctors. That's kind of nice to have a spine that'll do that. But I don't know any cardiologist that let you walk in the door without giving you an EKG. That's standard practice. It's like a doctor saying, what's your weight the minute you walk in the door? Weight and blood pressure. Mm-hmm. Oh, any cardiologist that wouldn't do an EKG, especially people like us that sometimes can have irregular heartbeats after a dissection that can turn into AFib too, right? So, interesting.
I like when you're on the warpath.
It's the iced tea. I don't think I've had caffeine in a while, so I'm bouncing off the walls. All right, let's get into abdominal aneurysms. We've just done thoracic. Now we're going to go down to the belly. Okay. Now we've got Duke. Duke is writing these. And again, he's the 4th-year medical student. He's at Harvard. And as we talked about in the prior post, we were discussing thoracic aortic aneurysms. And now we're going to go further down that aorta into the belly and talk about abdominal aortic aneurysms. And that would be AAA, AAA. Some people think a AAA stands for ascending aortic aneurysm, and it does not. I mean, it can in your world, sure. But if you talk about a AAA, people are going to generally accept that you're talking about the abdominal aortic aneurysm. You want to talk about an ascending? Go TAAA, thoracic ascending aortic aneurysm, if you want to do that. It's a lot of letters, I know. Again, an aneurysm is what? It's a bulge or a balloon, a stretched out area. It's just going to get larger than it should. And again, we like to talk about a garden hose. And a lot of people have garden hoses that are like 30 years old. And when you turn on that water full blast over and over for 30 years, usually closest to the spigot is where you might find a little bulgy area. So the green garden hose might start to look a little white as it starts to get a little too used. And you'll know you've used it too much when water starts trickling out of it or sprays out of it. That would be a rupture, ruptured garden hose. But it's the truth, right? It's a great analogy.
It is.
All right. Abdominal aortic aneurysm is a bulge of the aorta that extends through the levels of the abdomen. So you're beneath the diaphragm. And while the aorta is the largest vessel in your body, it's usually about 2 centimeters wide at the level of the abdomen. Okay. And this is, as we said, roughly the diameter of a garden hose. That's what's down there. It's much larger up higher, which I couldn't believe. It's definitely much larger. But when an aneurysm forms, it can be at risk for dissection or a rupture, which can be very serious and can be fatal. So let's take a look at what that would look like. And here we are, ba-bunk, there it is, right around the belly button area, right there in your abdomen. Again, in most cases, you're not going to have any symptoms with a AAA. It's going to be found accidentally on a scan, or if you have family history and they're going to check you out, they may find it. It's found incidentally. However, if it becomes large enough, people might feel this deep, constant pain in the belly area, a pulsation near the belly button, or persistent back pain. The larger the aneurysm grows, the more dangerous they all become, all of them. And the more common symptom of a ruptured aortic aneurysm in the belly area would be severe pain in your belly, and a ruptured aneurysm can cause massive bleeding, which can be fatal. So, risk factors of your abdominal aneurysm. Do you know what any of these are, Molly? I'm just trying to like bring you into my world of just talking.
Oh, I believe you said smoking, heart disease in your family, older males, overweight, poor diet leading to diabetes or cholesterol levels.
Very good. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, it's going to be that word I like to say, atherosclerosis. And that's going to be hardening of the arteries, and that's usually from cholesterol or fat buildup, high blood pressure, as you said, blood vessel disease, trauma. You know, airbags are often a common source of issues with the aorta, whether it's lower or upper. The biggest known risk factors for a AAA would be increasing age, so over 65 years old and being male. Again, ding, ding, all the things you had mentioned. Other risk factors include long-term smoking, high cholesterol level, family history of aortic aneurysms can lead to an increased risk of having an aneurysm. My father had an abdominal aneurysm. I ended up with a thoracic, but didn't know any of this, so never was scanned until whammy, and I found out there it was. All right, so because these don't have any symptoms typically, they are usually detected or diagnosed from screening or during a routine exam. And the screening test is often done through an abdominal ultrasound. So that's usually the first way that people find it. And that's the easiest way they can figure out the size of that aneurysm. If you already know you have an aneurysm, then they can also do a CT scan. And surveillance with medical management is appropriate when it has a diameter of less than 5.5 centimeters in males or less than 5 centimeters in females. So this would involve medication to lower your cholesterol and blood pressure, stop smoking, which will actually help slow down the growth of this aneurysm, right? I know it sounds so easy to do, but there's a lot of different ways that different organizations can help with smoking cessation. So if you need that information, we can always get that to you. If the abdominal aneurysm is large, over 5 or over 5.5, and detected before it ruptures, most people will be advised to have surgery, and that surgery is typically to put a stent or put a prosthetic piece of material in the abdomen. If it ruptures, that's immediate surgery. Okay, so you'll have to go, you'll know, you'll feel pain. You'll have to go right to the ER and let them know that you have an abdominal aneurysm, and they'll put you right in for a CT, and then they'll take care of that. If you're at high risk for a thoracic aortic aneurysm or you have a family history, you really do want to talk to your physicians about having your entire aneurysm screened. So that's abdominal. So far now we've covered what is an aorta, thoracic aneurysms, and abdominal aneurysms. We are making our way through. Well, got any activity out there, Josh?
Well, Christina was talking a little bit about the cost. And I said, yeah, you would think they wouldn't be comfortable charging hundreds of dollars per minute. And she says, the new patient visit was over $200. And then she says, Blue Cross Blue Shield allowed me to find another one in a month. And so I was like, is that like a free second opinion? And then she said, really? And I was like, oh. And then I said, I'm unsure what you mean Blue Cross allowed you to find another one. Is that a free second? So, yeah, she says, no, new doctors come with an extra high initial visit fee. Even though I did not see the actual doctor for a couple minutes, every question I had, she told me to ask a specialist.
This, I'm telling you, I don't even get it started. I don't want to get started on insurance in this country and how I think it's okay.
I can interject here. I have Blue Cross. I don't know if it's separate from the company that provides my insurance or not, but when I was entering into this whole realm, just kind of troubleshooting an aneurysm, aortic aneurysm, which is thoracic. I was inquiring about a second opinion, and they said, "Well, you're free to go to any doctor you want with your insurance. Of course, I wouldn't pay for it." Or she sent me to a teledoc situation, and I thought, okay, I'll probably get a nurse or. Well, I didn't. I got a cardiothoracic surgeon up in Minnesota, excuse me, Wisconsin. And that gal was on it. And she's the one that provided me with all the information I needed and told me everything to expect. It was brilliant. And it was just a really simple second opinion. She gathered all of my medical records that I had been, get leading up to almost a planned surgery. And anyway, my point is that sometimes these telemedicine, you do get the specialist, and it's free and very thorough, I might add.
That's great. That's good to know. Hopefully that'll help Christine out a little bit. So I know a lot of this navigating the insurance companies can be quite difficult, and I don't really know because I'm on Medicare because of disability.
And on the warpath. Thank you, Maya. That was beautifully insightful.
On the warpath. All right, well then let me read about aortic dissections in a really nice, happy, non-warpath way. All right, aortic dissection. What is an aortic dissection? So that's a pretty serious condition that obviously affects the aorta. It can affect it anywhere. It doesn't have to start at the root. It doesn't have to start in the abdomen. It can literally start anywhere. I know somebody who had it start in the thoracic descending, and then 10 years later got one in the ascending. So it really can happen anywhere. All right, so we already know about the aorta. The main vessel supplies all the blood and the oxygenated rich blood everywhere, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so again, here's your aorta. This is all the different places where it feeds blood to. So an aortic dissection is actually a tear. It is not a rupture. They are two different things. A dissection would be a tear that occurs in one or more layers, but not all three. So it's usually in one, it's either in the intima or the media, but it does not occur in the adventitia. I said that right? Because if that would occur, well, now we're pretty much at a rupture. So a tear would be the first layer or the second layer. So a dissection involves a tear in the inner, and then the blood travels in the middle layer and is held outside by the adventitia. Okay, so the diagram below will actually show the three layers in cross section and a representative illustration of what occurs when the blood seeps through. Okay, so this is your normal aorta with your three layers intact. And this would be what happens when you have a tear in the wall. So this is a dissection. Your blood's flowing and oh, it has a little rip. So here it is traveling through the middle layer. This is what it looks like on this side view as well. So it's traveling and there's a little tear right here, and then it starts going into this non-existent place right here. Same thing here, tear in the aortic wall, looking at from another angle, okay? So it actually can disrupt blood flow to your brain, to your limbs, to your organs, to any part of the entire body. The initial tear in the inner layer can occur from anywhere, just above the heart, which would be your aortic root area, and along the entire aorta, anywhere on its way down. Okay, so a type A would be anything that's on the ascending, type A ascending. I like the way that Dr. Udelman says that. So if it's in the first part of the aorta, near where it exits the heart, or in the arch, it's ascending, okay? If it's ascending instead of descending, it would be the letter B, ascending, descending, B. So if it's in the descending part of the aorta, beyond where the artery that goes down the left arm branches off, which we saw that left subclavian, we saw those three different branches, that would be called a type B dissection. Okay, there's different various risk factors for an aortic dissection, including your general health risk factors, your genetic risk factors. Obviously, if you have an aneurysm, high blood pressure, bicuspid aortic valve, illicit drug use, atherosclerosis, cocaine, weightlifting, other sports activities, high intensity, contact sports, pregnancy, genetic factors like a connective tissue disorder such as Marfan or Loeys-Dietz, Ehlers-Danlos, if you have a genetic condition, chromosomal like Turner, bicuspid aortic valve syndrome. All of these things could be a reason for concern that can cause a dissection. Everybody wants to know, what's a dissection feel like? How will I know? And the best thing I can say is you're just going to know when you know. You know your body. If someone tells you when you feel a ripping, tearing sensation, that's it. That's a dissection. Well, that is true. But there are a lot of people in the community that have felt nothing. They just feel a little dizzy, a little off. Some feel like they have gas or reflux, and that's just about it. So it varies on the pain scale. So the best advice I can say is if you feel like something's wrong, it's always okay to get something checked out, is my point. So if you're like, I don't know what this is, contact your doctor. They'll tell you what their rule of thumb is. I've spoken with my doctor, and sometimes it's see if you can shift position. If it is gas, get the gas moving, get it to come out and up. If you change positions, does the discomfort change? If that's the case, that's a good thing. Okay. If things stay the same and they're not moving, my personal physician has told me and me alone that that's when I might want to go in and get it checked out. It has little to do with what my blood pressure is reading or anything like that. I can't really define what the pain is going to look like, but in most cases, it's pretty sudden and intense, and the pain can occur anywhere in the chest, up towards the head, the neck. It can be in the jaw, back down and into the abdomen. It can be in your arms. It can be in your legs. It really depends on what portion of the aorta is actually involved. Other signs and symptoms definitely could be if you lost consciousness, if you were finding difficulty walking, if you had weak pulses in your hands or feet. Also, if you had a significant difference in blood pressure between your arms or if you had to take it around your ankles. That's a pretty telltale sign that there's been a dissection. Or if you, for a brief period of time, feel nothing, no sensation at all, like you are completely numb. And I don't mean pins and needles, I mean nerve block numb. If you just can't feel a limb, that's a pretty clear sign as well that you need to get it checked out. So it's a medical emergency. This isn't one that you're going to sit and wait in the waiting room. You're going to tell triage, I have an aneurysm or I have a family history of aortic issues and dissections, and I believe I'm having a dissection. I need to be seen now. I'd like to say in all cases, it's going to get you right back. It might not necessarily happen, especially if you don't have a known connective tissue disorder, but that's your best chance at getting right back. In these days and times, it's not even a guarantee if you take an ambulance ride that you're going straight back. I have seen and heard of people that pick people up in the ambulance, and if they're not 100% sure in that ride, they will put you in a chair in the waiting room with everybody else, and you will wait. So know your family history, know what you're feeling, and share it. And if you need somebody to advocate for you, make sure that they're aware as well. Complications to an aortic dissection can be severe. It really, really depends. It doesn't always happen to everybody. I have no percentages on that, but it goes from anything as the worst possible, which would be sudden death, to internal bleeding. You can have organ damage. You can have kidney failure. It's pretty common amongst some people that have this complication. Intestinal damage. Aortic valve damage is more common than not, whether it's regurgitation. You can have rupture into the tissue that surrounds the heart. That would be cardiac tamponade. People have had strokes. People have lost limbs or toes or fingers, malperfusion, just not getting blood to the right areas that they need it to go to. So those would be the major complications that happen. I can't, again, when I think about just if I had to take a poll of the community, I don't know that it happens more often than not. I don't know what your thoughts would be, Molly, but I don't even have like it would be 50-50. I really just don't know because I don't know that everybody talks about those complications. And it doesn't necessarily happen in that moment. It could happen when you're in the hospital for a couple days later. So do you have thoughts about that?
No, I think everyone's different, really. I mean, I found that I had some I want to say heart damage. I don't know. It's something I really need to directly ask my cardiologist, but there were my heart was messing up a little bit when it wasn't prior to the dissection. But yeah, I think everyone's different, and they could come about usually on the onset of the dissection. It seems they could come about as time goes on too. I don't know. Everyone's.
Yeah, it's all different. Yeah. But if you have our book or when you download the book, if you want to learn a little bit more information about this, you're going to find that on pages 13 through 25 is where you can find this information. about dissections. It's interesting. Doesn't happen to everybody. See, this is why we want to know about your family medical history to determine who's at risk, to do diagnostic testing, and decide if you need to be monitored. Dissections are rare, but aortic disease and aortic aneurysms are they're a lot more common than anybody realize, and so that's why we have these conversations all the time.
I recently watched Jack Crow's spectacular Survivor series, and very well said. And what a man! He later found out after his dissection, he's one of six kids, and I believe they're all boys. But I believe there are 3 others that have. One passed away suddenly of a heart attack. There was an aneurysm. There was another possible dissection. Anyway, 3 or 4 of the boys in that family all had this disease.
Isn't that amazing?
I know.
It's amazing.
He didn't know. They didn't know. But
yeah, it's crazy.
Think aorta, think family.
Absolutely. Hashtag.
I recall someone else telling a story where it may have been Dr. Udelman, where they would not release or discharge an aortic dissection patient until his children were scanned. So they
I asked him about that, and he says legally nobody can hold a patient and force other people, but he said they are more often than not talking to family members to explain you really need to make an appointment. Like make the appointment, understand and know this.
Yeah.
And they don't want to release until they've had the conversation and educated is definitely what it is. But you obviously can't hold somebody. But yeah, it is happening more often than not that they're going to bring the family members in and just say, this is really important now that you know this, and you need to you need to consider to have yourself checked. And there are still family members out there that don't want to know.
Yeah, and that's their choice.
Yeah, it is scary.
Choice.
Scary.
But I think that the siblings or children, grown children, can certainly go into a doctor's office and my brother, my mother had an aortic dissection, and they would be fast tracked right into that CT. I guarantee it. Oh yeah,
absolutely. And insurance would cover it.
Yes.
And you could also have genetic testing through clinical for sure. They definitely would test the person who had the dissection. Research studies will not test you unless they found something in the person who had the dissection. So yeah, they operate a little bit differently, the research versus clinical. But yeah, you'd be fast tracked for that as well. Yep. All right, let's move on to Friday. It was our first Friday fundraiser day. And this was our first time we've ever tried 32 auctions. For first time, virtual online fundraiser. It's doing okay. It's doing okay.
I put mine in.
I'm so excited because whatever does not go off on this coming Friday, on the 15th, is going back in for our fundraiser that we're having in person in Maryland the first weekend of October. But we want everybody to have a chance to look at it and bid on it anywhere around the country, really anywhere. And then people will get to see those objects at the fundraiser. Terry Cook is hosting her 2nd annual Aortiversary fundraiser. And then that auction will actually end that night at the fundraiser. But this one was our first taste. We wanted to see how it kind of worked out. A lot of great items that we have. So this right here is Brighton gently used jewelry box with removable drawers. Best day ever. Glasses with reusable insulating beverage sleeves. Paige Harper. These are gorgeous in person if you want really pretty diamond-like hoop earrings in cubic zirconia. We also have a Phillies package. It's got 2 bobbleheads, Gritty and Sean. I can't pronounce his last name. Sorry, not trying. 3 different pictures, the Philly towel and a headband. This is a Vera Bradley package. This one was really awesome too because I love this pill case right here. It's got like a credit card, ID card, keychain with a coin purse, gorgeous umbrella, another wrist strap, some really great stuff there. And of course, 100% of the money that we raised is used towards our initiatives as things like the aortic dissection, the patient guide. That's what this kind of things that we're using our money towards. So that's just to give you a little sampling of what we have in their Friday fundraiser. All right. I'm going to let you talk about this one because we just passed our last Saturday and it was a Survivor series about Melody Morse. You want to share with everybody what it was about a little bit?
Oh, I just adore her written story. It gave me chills. It really, really did. It was just so well said, and it was her version of her words put to her situation. It's just worth the read for sure. Has a very positive attitude. I believe she's a teacher. She did take away a few life learning lessons, and I encourage everyone to read it. It's just a phenomenal story.
Yep, check that out.
I really like the Survivor series. I think I've caught up with every single one of them, and I will say this: I had forwarded, I shared a Survivor series link to my family on a group thread we have. And I was surprised to find that my brother and sister-in-law, who live near Nina up there, they're up there in Hallsville, Texas, they were spending their Saturday binge watching the Survivor series.
That's so wonderful.
They found it fascinating. And I thought it was neat too, because they could now see that I wasn't the only one that was a complete freakazoid, upset, traumatized patient. That it happens to a lot of people when they share this story. It's really interesting.
It's validating. It's 100% validating. And I know you're getting ready to do yours soon. You just had so much on your schedule. So when that schedule, works its way out, well, we're really looking forward to seeing yours.
Oh, well.
It's coming when you're ready.
In due time. There's reasons.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think whether you do it written or anybody does it written, pre-recorded or video, I think more times than not, I will say I've never had anybody do it who said they regretted it and it freaked them out and now they're all upset. I've always had people say that it was cathartic and they can't believe they got through it. And even though they were upset, they immediately thought, what is somebody's takeaway going to be? And then when they start seeing the views increase and the comments, when people say things like, oh my God, like you said out loud what I have been saying inside my head and just never said, thank you. Or I can't believe you went through that too. Like that's what I went through. It all of a sudden lights open up for people, the shades are drawn open, they're pulled open and they just to know somebody else is like them. Or a lot of times people come away and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I ever thought I had it bad. Listen to her. She had it really bad, which is not a competition. And it's incredible because even if you heard their story, you said to yourself, wow, that was really bad. They hear yours and they say, oh, that was really bad. It's amazing.
It's just
it always pales.
The range of stories and the way they're told and the outcomes are just so amazing. It really is a source of information, and I don't want to say the word entertainment like it's enjoyable. I don't mean it, but what I meant to say is basically it's worth watching, and you're not regretful that you spent the time to watch these.
Right.
I personally will throw them on my phone and in my ears when I'm out on a walk, and I'll listen and then kind of look down at the person's face on occasion, but I'll hear it, and it's motivating.
That's so great.
Yeah, they're good.
So good to hear. All right. Comments, Joshua?
We have a bunch of comments.
Okay.
Nina jumped into the chat here. She was out and about, and she said she was at the library. And so she had her posters with her, and she spoke to the administrator, and they took it up and put it in the community room. Right?
That's awesome. Thank you, Nina. That's
what we're
great.
saying over here.
That's awesome.
She said that she also read this Survivor series and that she said it was really encouraging that she's still positive.
That's wonderful. We love hearing that. It's great. Thank you. We need to get Nina.
Also, Nina says she's been successful in placing 3 of the 10 posters she requested.
That's wonderful. Yeah, we have found that from doctors and nurses have told us that some of the most successful places they're putting it is in the bathroom stalls on the back of the door. Because honestly, if you're in the ER, like you're running around, I mean, maybe subconsciously you pick up the words, but when you're in the bathroom, you've got a little bit of time, and who doesn't love reading something on the back of the bathroom door? You just read it. That's it. So they are the perfect place to put them. I mean, even if they're first of all, not many doctors or nurses get the time to go to a lunchroom, but They all go to the bathroom. They all see it. And the patient awareness posters that we have, Aortic Hope has, those are great because they go into the exam rooms, and they're specifically meant for patients to be able to read while they're waiting for their doctor, and to scan QR codes to join support group meetings and to download the book. The Think Aorta or Think Aorta, Think Family posters work the best to go behind the stalls, behind the doors. Just food for thought.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. Aortic Hope's 5th anniversary of our Hope campaign. You know, this kind of started because, and I'm not taking anything obviously away from anyone who's lost, a loved one, but there was a big campaign when I first came into the community about, look at all the people you have something in common with. And it was all people who have passed from aortic disease. And it never made me feel good to read that. Although I can definitely hold a conversation depending on someone's age group and say, oh, you remember Albert Einstein, Lucille Ball, John Ritter, Alan Thicke, and go through some of those names, or Jonathan Lawson, and we just talk like, well, they all passed from something I survived. Great conversation starter for sure. However, that's not who I really have things in common with. I have something in common with, Nina, Bo, Christina, Bruce, you, Molly. These are people I have things in common with, people that are fighting every day, or our family members and loved ones that are right there with us. And so we decided to kind of create this campaign of, this is what hope looks like, and show a picture. What do you think hope actually looks like? And take a look at other people who are in your community and realize that's who I have something in common with, like right now, today. So we are launching our 5th annual video on September 19th, Aortic Disease Awareness Day. And if you want to be in on the fun of this video, then you need to email a photo on before, hopefully like before the 18th. It can be yourself. It can be you and your dog. It can be the ocean. It can be your doctor. It can be anything that makes you happy, that you think represents what hope looks like. You're going to email it to info@aortichope.org. Put hope in the subject line. If you forget, I can usually figure it out when it's just a random photo that pops in, and we will include you on the video. We actually have a link that shows you what last year's video looks like, so you can click that and check it out. Joshua does a great job in putting all of this together to some heartwarming music. And yeah, let's show the community what hope actually looks like, right?
I love that video. I love Josh. I didn't know Joshua did that. That's
Yes, he did.
it is well done. It's put together nicely, and
yep.
Yeah.
Kind of makes you feel good.
Yes.
Everybody who runs the different aortic pages, we have something in common with them. Even, people at Rock from the Heart, Run for Aortic Health, the whole 9 yards, like that's your community. And, we need to take a look at what hope actually looks like. So you still have time to submit your photos. All right. Then we had our last post of the week, which was about genetic screening. I'm sorry. Yes.
Hold on. You're going way too fast for the chat.
Okay. She said,
I know, right? Warpath, I'm telling you. So Velda jumped in to say that she sent her survivor story to her surgeon, and he posted it on his wall.
I love that.
I know, right? I was like, what a great idea. Well done.
That's great.
Then she said, I also sent him a PDF of the patient guide, so he's passing that on as
well. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. And Velda, if you need the link to the bulk orders, let me know. But again, Canadian stats are not going to be in this book. But a lot of support resources and stuff kind of run together, and the genetics are all the same anyway. But and there may be differences in kind of the medications that are the first line of defense that are typically prescribed. So there may be some nuances, but yeah, if they need that link, we can get that to you too. Good job. Very good.
Tim O jumped in and waved his hand.
Timo. Hi, Timo.
Timo.
Keeping track of everybody who joined.
Molly, you're being asked questions in the chat.
What are they?
Mostly, where do you live?
Oh. Oh, Christina, I'm in San Diego. I think you're the one who's up in Tyler, Texas, East Texas. So yeah, I'm down in San Diego.
Sunny San Diego. All right.
Back to you, Karen.
Thank you, Joshua. All right, genetic screening. All about genetic testing, research, and many individuals in the community often ask, why do families need genetic screening? Why do we even need to do it? And, part of me always believed that it's not necessary for my son. That's just how I feel right now. He'll make that decision as he furthers along his adulthood. For myself, I wanted to know since my father had something. So my parents and myself and my sister, we all participated in the John Ritter research program, that's a research study, and nothing was found. At the time, initially, a VUS or variant of unknown significance was found. Since then, when I went through, initially clinically, I went through GeneDx, and then 7 years later, I went through Invitae, all prescribed by my doctor. That VUS or variant of unknown significance was now assigned a letter number combination, which I believe means somebody else on the planet has this same thing. I don't know if that means we're related, but it's still unknown significance. But now, if more people come up with this same, break, mutation, blemish, mole, whatever it is on their DNA, it will become more significant. And maybe that'll turn into something and tell me why this happened. Now, definitely when that is found, I would probably encourage my son, if he wanted to know, to look into it. But not knowing doesn't mean not monitoring. He's still treated as if he has something. So he will receive scans. He will be told when to have follow-up. He knows the rules and, to follow when it comes to weightlifting. It's not about high weight. It's about high repetition, low weight, not straining, all of that. So he's still treated and educated as if there's something, but he's holding off on the genetics. That's just my personal experience. But it can be a little overwhelming. It can be a little complicated. Making this decision is very personal. Obviously, it's a personal choice. You have to think about it and talk about it with your family and your physicians. If you go to pages 85 through 89, there is a brief summary, which we can go over now. So in part A of the book, some people have a genetic predisposition to aortic dissection, and this means it can therefore run in your family. If you've had a dissection at a relatively young age, which would be typically age 60, and I had one at 45, so that's considered really young in the scope of things, or if you've had additional findings suggesting that a genetic syndrome might be present, it's particularly important to find out if there's any genetic factors involved and whether any of your relatives could be affected. This is sometimes called genetic screening. Your hospital team or your primary care physician can refer you for genetic counseling and consideration of genetic testing. You might need to travel, not sure, right? A lot of times they send you all these kits in the mail. But if there's no genetic clinics in your area, there are remote genetic counseling services that are also available. During your consultation, experts in genetics will actually take your family history, will discuss your aortic dissection with you. If there's even a cause suspected that has to do with genetic issues, they will arrange for a screening. The plan could involve genetic testing and or imaging. They might suggest imaging, which of course you may or may not have already been having with your physician, CT, MRI, or an echocardiogram for you and or other family members. And this is typically just yourself, your children, siblings, parents, or grandparents. It doesn't go to cousins, aunts, uncles, and stuff like that. For those without a known aneurysm or dissection, it's important to discuss the implications of a positive genetic test or an abnormal imaging test. Like, what will that mean for you if that comes back, especially as it relates to life or disability insurance? And there's a lot of potential factors regarding that. For instance, if you participate in a research program and results come back that say you have something, it's not going to impact your life insurance or your long-term health insurance as of today, because that stuff is all anonymous and your name is not associated with any information that could become public knowledge. But if you go clinical, there's a higher chance that now your physicians are known, they're brought in, they're going to be notified, and now you're going to be rated higher if you're rated to have any life insurance at all. So there's a lot of pros and cons you might want to think about and talk to, your insurance carrier, talk to your physicians, weigh it out with your family members. But you can get a lot more information about this if you download the guide and you check out pages 85 through 89. So that was genetic screening. A lot of information about the genetics in the book. Okay, we're going to move on. Just to remind you of the events. Oh God, what is today? We are past the Aortic Bridge Aortic Disease Awareness Walk. That didn't happen because it was a washout the other day in New York City on Sunday. But it was so much fun. We all got to hang out with each other. It was great. It was a good time to be had by all. Actually, I can't reach for my shirt right now, but it was a great time. Members of Aortic Hope, Aortic Bridge, Think Aorta, all together. I love placing faces with names. That's a lot of fun. Yeah. All right. So what do we have? Oh, and then we just had, as I mentioned, Carmen David interviewed Dr. Prakash specifically about exercise. That you'll find on YouTube.
That was good.
We have a live event tonight with Dr. Stacy Fisher, cardiologist. We're going to just go back to basics. We're going to talk a lot about everything aortic related, medications, side effects, how to take your blood pressure with what kind of cuff, all the things we talked about earlier. When is it truly an emergency if you know you have an aneurysm? When in doubt, when do you need to check it out? Family medical history. She's going to talk about genetics. She's a cardiogeneticist as well. I'm fully versed in congenital heart defects, so she understands bicuspid valve issues. We'll talk a lot about that as well. That's tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We always have our hangouts every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. That is not a support group meeting. It is a hangout. Molly, you go, you know, they're all crazy over there having a good old time. We've got bingo. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Anyone away who has an issue or a question or a concern, because most all of us participate in the support groups as well. Yeah. But yeah, generally hangouts on Thursdays is just a fun, silly, good time. Every topic is covered, jokes are told, and it's just recipes are shared and all kinds of crazy.
I've been in there. I've seen Rob's cooked. Chef Rob has cooked dinner, and you guys have had a chance to watch or listen, which is fun. But you have to sign up for the support groups in order to be notified of the hangout. And you'll also be notified of the support groups. If you are not a caregiver, you will only know about the 2 support group meetings that happen for everybody, which is the first Tuesday of the month at 12 p.m. Eastern or the last Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you are a caregiver, you will learn about the hangouts and only the caregiver support group meetings. So now that's going to be, oh my gosh, what is that, Josh? Just the first Saturday at 10 a.m. and I think the third Saturday at 4 p.m.
Correct.
Can't believe I remembered that. All right, so we also have bingo. That's this week, Thursday night, 7 p.m. Oh my gosh, I have so many great prizes. I'm so excited. So that's free. That's in a closed setting. You've got to register for that. I'm going to start pushing that. 10 games, you get 1 bingo card. You have to reuse it, but we're going to have a great time. We've got our caregivers virtual support group meeting coming up this Saturday at 4 p.m. Our weekend reviews, a live Ask a Doctor event. Any of your questions can be asked of Dr. Prakash. Remember, this is just his opinion. Food for thought. Take it back to your own physician. Don't make any changes without discussing it with your physician. And we are going to touch upon exercise a little bit, but I really want to focus on the immediate after effects of a dissection, or you found out you have an aneurysm. What does exercise look like for those people? I don't want to focus on years down the road. I want to talk about 1 month out, 3 months out, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. What are we allowed to do typically, and how did we determine we can do that? What does all this mean? And then it looks like the Survivor Series might have to be rescheduled, so I'm not touching upon that. We will wrap up Aortic Disease Awareness Month with a live event with Dr. Ben Udelman. That's going to be on the 26th at 4 p.m. Note that different time change because 4 p.m. is not usual for us, but and he's just a blast. He's just so much fun to talk to. So hopefully he brings models of aortas and all kinds of things with him. Again, any topic, we're going to go through everything with Dr. Udelman on that. And then we wrap up the month with a support group meeting and our hangout. But between now and then, tons more information, lots of little contests on Facebook. Everything is everywhere. And we love that you are joining us. And we hope that you get a chance to download the book, tell your doctors about the book. Thank you, Molly, for coming out today.
This is fun.
Thank you, Nina, Tim, Belda, Bruce, Christina, and Bo. See, I kept track. I would never memorize that.
And Felicia.
Oh, yeah. Who else?
Felicia showed up here toward the tail end.
Oh, right,
She's
Felicia. Oh, I didn't need that.
found her the link for bingo, so she's going to be signing up.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you too for joining. All right. Lots of information. Lots more coming next week too. Lots more. We still have to talk about emotional health, medications, support, where to find these resources. So much good. There's going to be a lot going on in the community. A lot of organizations are going to be throwing a lot of good stuff at you, especially in the next 2 weeks. So thank you again. We will see you here, next Monday, 3 p.m., not on Tuesday. We're going back to Mondays at 3 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget to click like. Don't forget to click subscribe. Don't forget to leave a message. Don't forget to click share. Click the bell. So much instructions for you, also that other people can find us and start receiving some support and education today. Molly, Joshua.
Toodles.
Well done,
See you.
Lindsay.
Bye.